So, Chris, what are you doing in town?
Um, just up here to meet with everybody and tell them we're still moving ahead with the arena, and it's I think answering questions too, and just letting people know we're still committed to bring the Sonics back. So.
It's the first time you've said anything publicly since the meeting down in Dallas. What can you say about how that went down and what your experience was in that meeting before the NBA Board of Governors?
Um, well, I would just say, look, I think we did it best we could. We um, did our homework and put Seattle's best foot forward, both from, I think presenting the case for the NBA coming back to Seattle, and also, I think as everybody saw, financially making a great offer to the league. So I think we feel really good about both of those things. I think it made a great impression, and I do think the NBA will be coming back to Seattle. It's just a matter of time.
Have you had a chance to reflect or recover since that vote went down?
Sure. I mean, having a little bit of time off to hang out with my family, and I do have a day job after a while, after all. So, yeah. I mean, it's been great to get back to both of those, and having a nice, quiet Memorial Day weekend with my family was much in order.
So one of the questions that's come up since that meeting is whether any promises were made to you going forward by the NBA.
I mean, I would say no would be my first answer. I think there's certainly the reassurances that we made a great impression, that the NBA would like to be back to this market, but no direct promises have been made about when or how, and that's probably not within the league is obviously an ownership driven body that makes an assessment based on what the 30 franchise owners want to do, and there's just nothing formal on the table right now for them to vote on, as it pertains to the return of the NBA to Seattle. So I think that time will come, and it could come again from, an opportunity of a team that the NBA maybe wants to move to Seattle, or it could come eventually with the new franchise, and I'll leave that to other people to speculate on.
So no promise of expansion next year or the year after that, or?
No.
And has the NBA?
I think you would have heard about that if that would happen. I mean, and I'm not sure that I'd be the first one to hear necessarily, given kind of the way things seem to leak out. I'm not sure that I would be the first one to know when and if that decision's made.
Any reaction today? I'm sure you've seen the news in the last hour or two that the DeveousX group is now apparently closed on the Kings.
I mean,
deal.
I think that's expected after I'm pretty sure that they had their financing together at the time of the last ownership vote. I'm sure that's something that the owners vetted, and so yeah, I wouldn't expect anything but them to be in a position to close.
Do you get your $30 million back now?
That's a question I'd probably like to punt on for now. I think we're in the process of trying to figure that out.
Another question that's come up is the 7% that was purchased in bankruptcy court. What happens to that now? What does?
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't been decided yet either. I would just say that if we're not going to be minorities in Sacramento in a meaningful way, owning a 7% stake, we certainly want to do anything that would be seen as divisive or working against the best interests of Sacramento. And perception can be different than reality, and even though we would never do that, I'm just not sure us being minorities in Sacramento would be perceived well by the people in Sacramento or maybe by the NBA. So I think we would probably look to a solution where the other ownership group is able to take that stake.
Yeah, I think it's been reported that it'll go back up to auction.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think that there's a few different ways that could happen, and it's probably best not to speculate on those until they're decided.
One of the other questions that's come up since the vote is the potential for litigation or a lawsuit. It doesn't sound like that's the way you're heading, though, based on what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not a litigious person. I don't think I've ever, been involved in a meaningful lawsuit, and it's just not the way I like to handle things, and I don't think I'd want to start by suing somebody like the NBA, particularly when we'd like to have a franchise back in Seattle someday. So I think that just through good relationships we can probably solve the problem, both on the $30 million and eventually getting a team back to Seattle.
How would you sum up your emotions after working on this for over 900 days and taking all the trips up and down the coast to testify here and talk to city and county council members? You put a lot of sweat, equity into this, in addition to money.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, Chris, that those, the benefit of all that hard work will pay off. So I don't view that as wasted time. I mean, we have a, great deal with the city and the county to build the arena. We've acquired the land. We're, halfway through the entitlement process now, and those are all things that are necessary to get the NBA back to the city. So I certainly don't feel bad at all about, all the effort that we spent in that process. And I think, that if you take a glasses half full approach, I think we did a lot to show the league what a great city Seattle is, and really how the demographics here have changed, and how the city's grown, and how passionate the fans are here, and what a great market this will be for not only selling tickets but television and sponsorship and all the things that make a city like Seattle a great home for the NBA. So I mean, it's the residue of that that will impact our likelihood of getting a franchise in the future. So
what do you want to say to the people who are in the Seattle area, though, that say after this and after what happened in 2008 that they're just done with the NBA, and that you should put your attention towards the NHL to fill that bill?
I would just say that, look, I understand people's, might get a little bit bent out of shape. And, look, when we started this process, we told people it was going to require patience, and that this could take a while. And it is, And so, people are going to let their emotions get the best of them in the near term. That's probably expected. But I think when people have time to get this out of their system, that they'll go back to wanting to have a basketball team. I mean, if you're a basketball fan and you grew up a Sonics fan, you'd probably still love to get a basketball team back here at the end of the day. And so it's my job to, look forward with optimism and, try to put Seattle's best foot forward and, engage in a dialogue with the NBA and try to see what we can do to get a team back here. So,
can you clear up any confusion, though, about the building and whether the NHL could come in first before an NBA team in order to start construction?
Well, I mean, I think everybody knows, without this getting into a immense amount of finite detail, the deal that we structured with the city was designed, obviously, for basketball to come first. So, the decision of whether to bring in hockey first is really the city and the county's decision as much as it is Chris Hansen's decision. So, we have our equity invested in the land. We're going to invest, additional capital in getting this arena through the entitlement process. And we're certainly open-minded and would love to have an NHL partner here for the long term. But I think there's a lot of, work to be done to see if a deal can be crafted that's, gets the city and county what they want, gets the NHL potential owner what they would want, and gets us what, which we would want, which is not all of the risk falling squarely on our hands to build an arena without having clarity into the timing of a basketball team coming back to Seattle.
There would have to be changes to the MOU and the key arena agreement.
It doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, then the answer, to that would be how much of this risk is the potential hockey or NHL ownership group willing to accept. So there's a number of different ways to get there.
But there's not necessarily an answer to that in the next few months.
There could be. I mean, but again, that's going to depend on, again, the NHL. It's going to depend on an ownership group from the NHL. I mean, you're making the assumption that the NHL is determined they want to be here, or it's acceptable, for a team to move here. And that question is probably better asked to a potential ownership group. I think we've been clear all along that we have our hands full. I mean, our group is passionate about bringing basketball back here. We'd love to help the NHL return here. We'd love to find a great partner to do so, but that, we can't do it all. And, I think when it comes to that level of detail, those questions should really be asked to the NHL and the ownership group that would want to bring the franchise back here.
And as far as the land you've acquired in Soto, you don't have any plans to do anything rash with that?
No. I mean, we're moving through the entitlement process. I think we'll do just quite the opposite. I mean, to the extent that the time frame gets stretched out on us now, and that a team isn't coming here next year, and we might not be beginning construction until we have some clarity, until a franchise comes here, we'll probably want to make some decisions that are probably less viable for us, if we were pursuing this as a real estate development opportunity. We're not going to want to put long-term tenants in there. We're not going to want to build things that would need to be torn down if or when we do build the arena. And so we'll be looking at, alternatives that meet, the dual objective of, helping us keep, make a small return on this property while we await the chance to, begin construction of the arena.
But the project has slowed down somewhat, has it not?
I would say not really, not yet. I mean, we're going through the entitlement process, as you know, and so we're not in perfect control of the timing of certain elements of that, right? The city is the major party to the SEPA process, and we're also not in charge of, appeals that may come up or litigation that we may face. So I think we're moving forward quickly. We still anticipate getting through the entitlement process by the end of the year. We'll probably face some, appeals like every project does, and I think we would still hope to get this project kind of shovel ready by this time next year.
So when is this mission complete for you?
When we have a team back. It's pretty simple, I think not more complicated than that. I would say the only thing that I would tell you, I think that maybe goes back to the first part of your question, is that when we began this process, we were really under the impression that the Kings would be moving from Sacramento, and that it was just a matter of where, and that, I think someone covering the story as you have would know, and there was other cities bandied about where this franchise was interested in going, and that's really the way we assess the situation. If we would have thought it would result in a Seattle versus Sacramento keeping their Kings, fight like it appears to have at the end, that would have probably been something we would have been less interested in from the get-go. And I think that that's important, because as you look forward, I think our group is not, as I've said along, going to be predatory and go out there to other cities. Other cities should not fear like our group coming and trying to wrestle their teams loose. If there's a team that is going to relocate here, I think we'll be extra careful the next time to ensure that it is a team that the NBA wants moved, and that is truly not working in that community, and that the decision's probably made with more clarity in advance.
So do you have a bad taste in your mouth just on what happened and transpired over the last couple of months?
No, it's not that. I'm just trying to give a good assessment. I mean, I think you just learn from your mistakes going forward, and maybe we just didn't, and probably the NBA too, we didn't realize that Sacramento could put together what they did in a short amount of time, and congrats to them for, doing what it takes to save their team. I think, as I said in my statement, if there's any kind of, silver lining to this, I mean, I think everybody in Seattle, as disappointed they are that the Sonics aren't coming back, they're probably a soft spot in their heart for Sacramento being able to fight successfully to keep their team. And so it's not distaste, it's more just that's the takeaway. And if, you look around at the other franchises that sometimes get, bandied about as like relocation candidates, that we would not aggressively go there with this experience behind us now and try to, wrestle a team loose. That's not what our efforts are about.
So it sounds like you'll be taking a few months off at least from this effort and focus on family and your full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, but I would just say I have all along too. So, I mean, it's not like I haven't been focusing on my job all along or my family all along. I have been. It's just that, you know, your bandwidth gets stretched at points, and you know, and you're, you know, I think it's emotionally taxing, and an experience like this that means so much to so many people. You definitely carry a little bit more weight on your shoulders. So just that stress relief is, you know, for the intermediate term until we can, you know, have our next opportunity come up is nice.
I think that's about all I had for you. Key Arena agreement was the only other question. What happens to that?
I mean, I think it's the foundation for an agreement when a team would come and play. So I think that the heavy lifting's been done on that, and I think any future, you know, franchise that would come back to Seattle and play at Key Arena, we have a great baseline for making that happen. So is it going to be, you know, voted on now? Probably not, because the city should retain Key Arena in its control until a franchise comes back. If a franchise comes here and plays in Key Arena for the interim period, guess what? We'd probably dust this off, and this would be, you know, the agreement we'd move forward with. I would just say that, you know, when you look at, you know, this is probably the ideal solution if there's a team relocating here. If you're really talking about a new franchise, you should keep in mind that it's likely to work a little bit different, right? A new franchise would probably be awarded to give us the confidence that we need to start construction of the new arena, but there probably would not be a need for the team to play in Key Arena. It would probably come straight into the new arena, or certainly spend less time.
If it's an expansion franchise.
If it was an expansion franchise. And I don't say that with any insight from the NBA. I'm just, you know, this is just Chris Hansen's opinion of the practical reality of the situation. If it's a, you know, if you're talking about a new franchise, it can start whenever the arena's ready. So.
All right.